After the end of a 5-year truce between the Portuguese and the Almohads in 1178, both the Christians and Muslims invaded each other's territories in destructive raids. The great number of battles occurred both on land and sea during the late 1170s and early 1180s. Of those confrontations, one campaign, launched in 1183 to conquer Santarém, would have a deep impact in Portuguese and Almohad history. Before getting into the great military enterprise undertaken by the Almohads in 1184, it's important to know the person who launched it. Abu Yakub Yusuf was born in 1135 in Tinmel, North Africa. He was the son of the first Almohad Caliph. Throughout his life, he is described as having been a scholar who focused on Islamic theology, particularly Zairism, which took every written word in the Quran literally. He even banned books by non-Zairis thinkers. Yusuf also financed the study of Islam by many scholars who gathered around him. In 1170, the emperor invaded the Iberian Peninsula and in a few years conquered all of Al-Andalus, that is, the Muslim territories of Hispania, which had been divided into smaller Muslim kingdoms after the fall of the Almoravid dynasty. He then established himself in the historical city of Seville, where he ordered the construction of the Giralda as well as the Alcazar. As it can be noticed from what I mentioned, Yusuf was a man who was very sure of his religious convictions and who was ready to fight other Muslims of different schools of thought than that of his. Therefore, it is not difficult to imagine him as a person invested in participating in a jihad against the Christians, which he certainly did. That is why, during the 1170s and 80s, Yusuf would attack the Kingdom of Portugal. In 1183, Yusuf began preparations for his biggest invasion of Portugal, where he desired to conquer Santarém, given its strategic importance to the kingdom, and then head to Lisbon and take it for Al-Andalus. In September of that year, in Marrakech, he started assembling troops for the campaign over the Tagus. Furthermore, the Muslim leader ordered the construction of siege weapons. On the 17th of May, the Islamic emperor crossed the Strait of Gibraltar and made the remaining preparations for the campaign in Seville. On the 7th of June, he departed to Santarém. Eventually, the Almohad Caliph arrived to the city and began a siege. Inside the walls, the Prince of Portugal, Sancho, aged 29, was in charge of defending the location, for his father, the king, who was, by that time, almost 80, found himself in Coimbra. The Portuguese, though heavily outnumbered, kept resisting the Islamic military enterprise, which consisted of very tough attacks on the population. The periphery suffered mostly from this aggression, having been, a lot of it, destroyed, with 2 important local churches being pillaged and demolished. It is thought that the Almohads were still enraged at the Portuguese for their raid on Seville in 1178, but these demoralizing attacks were also made with the intent of demotivating the besieged troops, so that they would surrender. In the north of the kingdom, the Bishop of Porto, Dom Fernando Martins, assembled an army to help the Portuguese prince, and in Galicia, the Archbishop of Santiago de Compostela gathered several men from the Kingdom of Leon to give aid to their Christian brethren in Santarém. Furthermore, the Leonese ecclesiastical authority led the men he assembled himself from northern Leon to the Tagus Valley. In addition, the King of Leon, Ferdinand II, who had fought against Sancho's father in Badajoz in 1169, also sent troops from Ciudad Rodrigo and Cáceres. There are 2 versions of what happened next. One states the Caliph was overconfident in the number of his troops and ordered part of the Islamic army to depart to Lisbon and lay siege to it, which would have caused great confusion to the majority of the Muslim men, who saw a lot of their brothers in arms leaving, mistaking the Caliph's orders, thinking it was time to retreat. Another hypothesis states that when the Almohad Caliph realized that Christian support was on the way from northern Portugal, as well as Leon, he decided to retreat. Either way, the retreat and the great confusion that followed it are agreed by most historians. In the chaotic Muslim departure, the Christians ended up attacking the Muslim military camp, wounding the Amazigh emperor severely. The Caliph died on the road back to his territory in Kurush, not too far from the cities he desired to conquer of Lisbon and Santarém. His body would first be taken to Seville in Al-Andalus and then to Tinmel, the birthplace of the Almohad Empire. Thus, the result was a decisive Portuguese victory and a serious defeat for the Almohads, who invested a lot in this campaign and ended up losing their political leader in the process. Though the Almohads suffered a great blow to their aspirations in Portugal, the successor of Yusuf, Al-Mansur, would prove to be a much greater threat than that of his father and would face Sancho several times during the century. As for Sancho, he had proven his value on the command of troops once again, but this time on the defensive.